Hey InsideOut, my name is Chloe and I'm so excited to be your online host for this cold Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If it's your first time engaging with us, you couldn't have picked a better day to do so. We're going to be in part 1 of a brand new series called Relationship Status, and our InsideOut director, Matt Keeney, will be up shortly to deliver that. If you're watching this on Sunday afternoon, don't forget to hop onto your Zoom small group right after the message. But before we get down to that, it wouldn't be InsideOut if you guys didn't have an opportunity to win some great stuff. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to comment in the chat what your favorite love song is. And then one of you will be randomly selected to win a bucket full of snacks and a $25 Academy gift card. Awesome, we're gonna pick our winner and reach out to you shortly. Hey, as we all know, it's Valentine's Day, and because of that, it's either a really great day for you every year, or maybe it just feels like any other day. Regardless of how this video finds you, maybe your thoughts on Valentine's Day and dating in general is just, it's complicated. But does it have to be? Stick around for part 1 of our Relationship Status series, and Matt Keeney will be up in just a sec.
You know what's really funny about that video is I can actually relate with one of those tweets, because not too long ago on a date, I talked way too long about Star Wars. Here's what happened. I met this girl through a mutual friend and it was our first date. The first about 30 minutes of this date were going great. We were making each other laugh and it was awesome. Then it took a turn for the worst. We started asking each other about our favorite things. So favorite music, favorite books, etc. Then I asked her what her favorite movie was, and she said the Katy Perry World Tour movie. Now, I don't judge, but that's just not totally my cup of tea. And naturally, she asked me that back, and I obviously said Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. And she had never seen any of the Star Wars before, so naturally what I did is I explained the entire plot for her, which was not a good move. And was talking about the way the order of the movies go and the most strategic way to watch them, and I quickly realized I had been talking about Star Wars for about 10 minutes. So I wrapped up the conversation by saying, you know, if you want, I can take you back to my house and I can show you my lightsaber. Now, she took that to mean something totally not what I meant. I was talking about the one from the movie. Needless to say, we did not have a second date. I'd like to say we've all had those awkward moments, but that just may be me. Regardless of where you're watching today, I could not be more excited for the series we're doing called Relationship Status. Here's my hope for the series, that regardless of your current situation, if you just recently started dating someone, have been dating someone for a few months or years, you have hopes to be married someday, or if you are as single as a Pringle could get, my hope is that what we talk about is incredibly helpful to you. However this message finds you, our hope is that whatever you hope for in a relationship, that here at InsideOut, you hear something that can be helpful to you. Here's an overarching statement for this series that we'll hit each week, and it's this. If you don't want a relationship, like the majority of relationships, then don't date like the majority of daters. Meaning you could have a viewpoint on a relationship or dating that's like, well, none of them work, so why would I even date? Or my buddy just seems miserable in a relationship, so why should I hop into one? Or you see your friend being treated wrong by a dude and you're like, well, I don't want that for myself. Well, that's maybe because the majority of relationships you see in your life shape that viewpoint for yourself. And in this series, we'll be talking about how we not only date differently, but also better. I'm gonna say this about dating today, and maybe you already know this. Today's perception of what dating should be like is flawed. I don't know if it's flawed because of music, culture, celebrities we idolize, I don't know. But here's some cold, hard facts about dating or relationships in general in today's culture. When it comes to dating that turns into marriage, divorce is so normalized. 50% of marriages end in divorce, and maybe you are all too familiar with this. Maybe you grew up in a home with divorced parents. Over 2/3 of remarriages end in divorce as well, and the rates only go higher after the third marriage for someone. Now, why is this? Why is that so common? Why is it so common for high school couples to date, then break up, then get back together, then break up again? It just seems like this never-ending constant cycle. Maybe you even have asked yourself, regardless if you're single or in a relationship, why is dating complicated? Or why is dating messy sometimes? Why is pursuing a relationship with someone so hard sometimes? My belief is because there is a huge gap between saying something and doing something. Saying you want a healthy relationship and actually having one is a huge gap. Think about it this way. If I say I'm going to the gym and I'm gonna bench 300 pounds, first off, I'm a little guy, that would crush me. But if I had never even worked out before and said that, everybody watching today would be like, Matt, you're crazy. If I don't like to run, which side note, I don't. If you have a friend who enjoys running, get them some serious help. But if I don't like to run, then I say next weekend I'm signing up for a marathon, I would be shocked if I got support. Everybody watching would be like, Matt, are you insane? So when it comes to some of us with very little to no relationship experience today, why is dating any different than running a marathon? Think about it this way. When preparing to get your driver's license, you have to go through driver's ed. Before you have the freedom of going wherever you want, you have to go through a prerequisite process. In the same way, before dating, you have to become a person who is mature enough to date. I don't mean to say this to diminish you or say get it together. My point to this is that dating doesn't have to be complicated. There is a way to have a healthy relationship, especially in high school. But if you don't want a relationship like the majority of relationships, then don't date like the majority of daters. And if we don't pause and ask ourselves how we don't date like the majority of daters, then we are potentially setting ourselves up to be a future statistic. Here's my point. Committing to date someone during high school actually doesn't make you capable to date. And you may push back and say, well, Matt, I'm gonna be different. And listen, I think that's a great attitude, but it's also important to know that saying we're gonna be different doesn't make a difference. So what do? Since I like sports and exercise examples, I think wherever you are today, single, currently dating, flirting, in the DM stage, wherever, I think it's time we learn how to flex our relationship muscles. If you're single, I think you're actually at an advantage state because that means you can have time before you're dating someone to really work on these muscles. If you're dating, it's like you'll have to catch yourself working on these muscles and immediately put them into practice. In terms of how to date, there's not any specific advice or scripture specifically around dating because thousands of years ago, dating was not a part of the culture before someone got married to someone else. Now today, it almost feels kind of necessary. But the Bible is incredibly helpful in terms of having good, healthy, and loving relationships. The Apostle Paul has some very helpful insights when it comes to love. Though this passage we're looking at is not specific to dating in high school, we can take this concept and apply it into our situation today. In Paul's letter to a church in Corinth, he discusses how we should treat those around us. Here's what he says. He says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. Maybe you've heard this scripture a million times before, but the reason it's read at weddings or posted on Instagram stories is because it has a really important message. This list describes who God is to us. He embodies all these characteristics of love. This is who God is with you. God is patient with you. God is kind to you. Think about this. Kindness is not reminding someone of their weakness, yet it is loaning someone your strength. And this is what God has done with us. In our shortcomings, in our failure, in our sin, God still loves us and chooses us every single day. And the life of Jesus perfectly illustrated every single aspect of love. When Jesus gave his new covenant command, like the one thing we should all focus on if we are his followers is this. He says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." Paul's verse in Corinthians also describes the type of person we should be looking to date. And this might hurt to hear. This is the type of person each of us needs to be. No, we'll never be perfect like God. But if we want to love others the way God loves us, we need to develop these characteristics in our lives. What this means for everybody watching is that we might need to stop looking for love and work on becoming love. So how do we actually do that? If we were to go back to that 1 Corinthians verse and go word by word, this is what it means. When Paul says love is patient, what this means in terms of loving someone really well is to slow down to the other person's capacity. Think about this. Are you constantly pushing the other person to do something before they may be ready to do so? Do you yourself feel pushed or pressured into doing something you don't want to do? If so, then that is not being loving. When Paul says love is kind, one of my favorite definitions of kindness is the one I mentioned earlier. It's loaning someone some of your strength instead of reminding them of their weakness. Not a dating example, but if you know me at all, you know I'm the worst at math. And the most kind people would be the ones who took time out of their day to help me rather than telling me to suck it up or just do better. When it comes to relationships, is the person you're dating kind to you? Are you kind to them? If you're single, are you kind to yourself? Do you constantly get discouraged in this area of your life and say things about yourself that you believe are true about you? But in God's eyes, those things aren't true at all. Are you kind to you? When Paul says love does not envy, what that means is love does not play the comparison game. Love doesn't look to the left and right and look at other people's relationships and say, well, if you were just more like so-and-so, and if you just cared for me like he cares for her. See, if you catch yourself saying that, that's not loving and that's not encouraging. When Paul says love does not boast or is not proud, what this means is you try your hardest to give the other person the spotlight. It means doing the incredibly hard thing and becoming a person who humbly serves the other to their needs. Rather than trying to just get everything from a relationship, it means to give something into it. When Paul says love does not dishonor, what does this mean? It means no matter what, in the context of being single or in the context of a relationship, it means asking the very difficult question, is what I'm about to do, is what I'm about to say, honoring this person in the way that God honors them? It's an incredibly hard question, but it will make your relationship or the way you act towards or treat the other person in your life so much better. Love is not self-seeking. Similar to what we said before, it is constantly looking to give rather than get from the relationship. Love is not easily angered. Very simple, be calm to one another. Don't always play the blame game, believe the best in each other. If he doesn't text you back right away, don't go through all the what if scenarios or don't devalue yourself in that moment or become super angry at him. Believe the best and practice calmness. Lastly, love keeps no record of wrongs. Love forgives. Love doesn't hold something over someone's head forever. Think about it this way, love forgives in the same way God through Christ forgave you. See guys, we all want to date someone who is patient, kind, and all the things Paul says love is. But how can we expect to date someone like this if we are selfish, jealous, or rude in return? When we expect someone else to be all these great things but don't expect the same of ourselves, we're simply looking to get something from dating without giving anything. If you want all of these qualities in a partner, you need to seek to embody them yourself before you even think about dating. To date someone who embraces patience, kindness, honesty, and humility, you need to embrace patience, kindness, honesty, and humility. So what do you hope to gain from dating? Are you simply looking to get something from someone? If you know dating isn't something you want to pursue right now, how are you working to become the best version of yourself? The challenge we want to issue this week is to pick one characteristic of love to work on. Do you need to be more patient, less selfish, maybe a little bit more humble? Working on you can be overwhelming, so for this week, just pick one characteristic to help you become a person who's ready to date. Guys, if you don't want a relationship today, or someday like the majority of relationships, then don't date like the majority of daters. If you're in a relationship, you have an opportunity to truly give all you have into it, to make it an incredible relationship. If you're single, you have an opportunity to become the person you're looking for is looking for. Taking Jesus' version of love, in fact, doesn't make dating complicated. It makes it so much better than that. Bottom line today, we might need to stop looking for love and work on becoming love.